So we're going to configure our firewall to be able to access a server, a web server in our DMZ using one-to-one NATing. Okay, so the network we're going to configure is this one here, the test one. We're going to use 99 for our LAN and 100 for our DMZ. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's configure our firewall. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll initially clear the configuration and restart it from fresh just to make sure that it's a clean build. So it just takes a minute to reboot it. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll configure our LAN device. So it's Ethernet 10, so we'll configure that one Ethernet 10 with 192.168.99.7, and we'll give it a net mask of 255.255.255.0. We need to do sudo. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to set up the default gateway, which should be the port on the router. So that's 192.168.99.254, and then we need to set up the name server. Okay, so it looks like this one's already set up. So we'll just quit from there. So that's that all set up now. So now what we'll do is that we'll set up our firewall. No VLANs just now. EM0, EM1, EM2, and that's fine. So the default IP address on our WAN should be DHCP, and it should give us just a private address for our LAN. So first thing we need to do is to change our LAN address to be on the same subnetwork as our LAN host. We won't take DHCP, we just take static IP addresses. Okay, so hopefully that's a setup. We've got an IP address there on our WAN port, so we'll just ping ourselves first. Good, and then we'll ping the gateway, and that's working. So now what we can do is that we can now go to the firewall and configure it. Okay, so we have internet connectivity, so that's fine. And why that is because by default our firewall allows everything through on the LAN port. Okay, so we'll just get logged in. We'll just quickly go through this. Okay, so on the WAN port, just make sure that you unblock private networks because all of our networks are private. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we'll enable our DMZ interface, and we'll give it an IP address. Give it a better name. And it's 192.168.100.254. And it's 24 bits for our subnet. Just make sure that you don't block private networks. And that should be us. Okay, so now we'll go to our Windows host, get that set up. Okay. So it's 192.168.100.7. That's the right subnet mask, and then this is the port on the router that we connect to. And our default DNS is 10.200.0.1. Okay, so for just now it would be difficult for us to actually do any debugging because everything will be blocked. So what we need to do is to enable some rules. So on our DMZ, let's enable some ICMP so that we can at least ping out the way. So from any to any, so that's fine. Okay, so that's now set up. So the next thing that we'll do, well, just let's see, so that's ICMP set up. So hopefully, when we ping ourselves, that's fine. And the gateway, perfect, so the gateway's working. But what we should find is that we can't actually get out of the network, and that's for 2 or 3 reasons. One is that we need to enable DNS for a lookup, because when we look up we'll find it won't actually work, so we need to get DNS lookup. But we also need to enable port 80 and port 443. So Google uses 443, so we need to make sure that both those ports are open. So let's open them up. On the DMZ. Okay, so that's TCP from anywhere to any destination for HTTP. We need to enable 53 UDP. From source to any destination, that's fine. And if we're going to access Google, then we'll have to enable 443. TCP. Because Google uses 443 by default. Okay, so we'll just apply that. So now from our DMZ we can get out anywhere. On 443 we can also we need to change this one here to make sure it's just port 4453. Okay, that's fine. Right, so that should give us some connectivity from the DMZ. So now 53 is allowing us out, 80 and 443. Aha, perfect. Okay, so our NS lookup is working now because we've enabled the firewall from the DMZ. Perfect. Okay, so that shows how you can set up your rules. Just to see if we can connect to our LAN. So it's 99.7. Perfect. And let's see if we can get connectivity to our LAN on 99.7. That's perfect. So we're getting good connectivity there, and we should be able to do the same from this side. 10.192.168.100.7. Perfect. Okay, so we're getting very good connectivity now to each of the networks. So the next thing that we'll do is we need to try and get some external, we need to get the server onto an external network. So we're going to use, we're going to set up to take an address. So if we nmap our WAN port, we can see the addresses which are actually being used. So let's take one of those addresses and we'll take 10.200.0.199. Okay, so that's going to be the address which we can be contacted by. Okay, so the way that we do this is that we set up a virtual IP address. And reverse ARP will advertise the MAC address to the network. Okay, so we take a single IP address. So we're taking this address here. And that's going to be the address that we'll link back Now what we need to do is go to NAT and then do a one-to-one. And what we're going to do is we're going to link our external address, to an internal one, 192.168, and this is 100.7. Oops, too many sevens. Okay. So that's fine. So that's our external address, and then that's the internal address. So now what we need to do is we need to open up the firewall to allow connections in to that network. Okay, so anything coming in is allowed to go to a single host. DMB. So anything, and we'll send that to 192.168.100.7. On port 80. And we'll also allow our gateway to be pinged so that we can debug. And that's for the whole network. Okay. Right then, so what we'll do is we'll just pull up a host on an external network. So this host should be on the 10.200 serial network. And let's ping our gateway to see if it's alive, and it is. And now let's try to see if we can connect on port 80. Oh, fantastic. It's working perfectly. Okay. So let's try the browser. Okay, so just to show this that we aren't on the same network and that we're external. This is our address 0174, and then what we want to do is to connect to our new device, and there you go, that's it, perfect. Okay, if we look at our ARP cache, what you'll see is actually that the MAC address of our gateway and this 199 address are actually the same, and that's because we're using this this proxy ARP, which is mapping the same address, and it's up to the firewall to be able to match it. Okay, we can't ping it just because the way that that actually works, but we can certainly connect any of our services. So if we wanted, we could get our FTP server also connected. So that's LAN. Okay, so we would just go ahead and we would enable for port 21. Okay, so this is showing you an example of how you can set up your firewall to have a one-to-one NAT.